Talent. This word divides people into two sides and there is no in between. Either you believe talent exists and people got it or they don't, or you're the type of person whose eye starts twitching once talent is being mentioned. And trust me, artists totally love being called talented, that's for sure. Hi, I'm Selena, I'm a figurative artist. Welcome to my little art diary here on YouTube, and in today's episode, we talk about the big elephant in the room while I draw this vibrant pastel portrait. Before we dive deeper into the discussion, let's elaborate what talent even is. Talent is a term describing someone's natural ability or skill to execute a task, which can be anything really. It could be something creative, athletic, intellectual, social. Since my videos are about making art, we will now stay within that category, but it could easily be translated into one of the other fields. Now, these natural abilities also imply that people are born with them, hence the word natural. And this, on the other hand, is interpreted as either genetic traits or simply a God-given gift. Which made me just think about the Powerpuff Girls being created with ingredients, as if you can just add a little drop of talent to a random baby. All of what I just described brings me to my next talking point, that is, why artists hate the talent myth. So this happens quite often. Someone discovers art, wants to give the artist a compliment, and the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, you're so talented. But when we think back to the definition of talent, it becomes more understandable why artists really dislike being called talented. They see it not as a compliment, but a certain ignorance towards their hard-earned skills. When you think about it, it's not that flattering to receive compliments for something you can't control. But in order to get to a specific skill level, you have to work hard for it, practice, create art all the time, fail, correct mistakes, and repeat all those things again and again. So the definition of talent is quite the opposite of that. People like to think some artists just got it. I think creating art is also heavily romanticized. People want to believe that one day you just sit down in front of your desk and inspiration magically flows infinitely, so you just create masterpiece after masterpiece because, you just got it. But artists can be so sour about this exact image of creating art because they know how hard it is to improve your own skills. They know it takes tons of time, sweat, self-doubt, failures, patience, repetition to be where they stand. Whether or not it exists, talent didn't play any role in this. They worked hard for it. So that's why they don't want to hear, well, you just got it. You're just lucky to be born with it. It denies their hard work and dedication towards art. And basically being called lucky is not a compliment. It is more so an expression of jealousy and envy. I think this is also a very small factor. People may not intentionally call someone just lucky, but this is the underlying tone when you tell someone they are just talented, because it implies you didn't have to do anything. Everything just naturally clicked for you. So I hope this makes sense and shows you a bit why so many artists are triggered by being called talented, which I was definitely one of them, but honestly by now I just accept it as the intended compliment, but more on that later. Before we proceed, I just want to mention real quick that I updated my shop with new originals and fine art prints, so if you're interested in collecting my art, check out my website. And if you want to stay updated on future shop updates, I suggest subscribing to my newsletter. Don't worry, I'm not spamming anyone. I will more so send out one email every other month, or roughly stay around that schedule. Okay, back to the topic. Let's explore a bit more on what it actually takes to be outstanding at something. If it's not talent, then what is it? Well, you don't need to be exceptional to be called talented. Most people use the label talent for anyone better than them. But if we're speaking about exceptional skill better than the norm, how do you get there? Well, most people would say practice. Practicing, just doing the craft as much as possible, but to me, that's just not the core of what it takes to develop a high skill level. Sure, anyone can practice and do something as much as possible, but most people won't even get to this point because they simply lack the motivation. If you're not motivated, and with that I mean an extremely strong internal motivation, you simply won't make enough art. You will lose interest in no time. So let's talk about the motivation it needs to truly blossom as an artist. You need a deep connection with the craft, a true dedication. I'd almost say a lifelong bond with making art. This is what a lot of people lack, and therefore they won't practice and exercise enough, which means they won't improve significantly. I think a lot of people start making art because they want to impress the people around them, and to a degree I think that's what we all wanted at some point, especially when you're a child and you get praise for a nice drawing. That really hits the spot and motivates us to do more. But the time will come when you truly have to face whether or not this is actually enough to keep going. And I'd say making art just to get attention and praise from others is not a strong enough motivation in the long run. I think you almost have to be obsessed with art up to a point where it's just part of your life. I will tell you my personal story on why and how I bonded with making art so much that I will never be able to let it go. It is a precious bond, but the backstory is actually kind of sad. So as a kid, I was always extremely obedient and submissive. I come from a background with parental abuse, and I was often instructed to just stay in my room and not make a sound. Be a good girl and don't bother your parents. That is the reason why I gravitated towards drawing in contrast to playing with noisy toys, dancing around, making music, or other stuff. Drawing was quiet, and on top of that, I was able to create my own world. I think it became a coping mechanism to escape the reality I was stuck in. I was able to express my fantasy world onto paper. There I was safe, it was peaceful, and no one could take it from me. If you rip the paper apart, I could just draw onto another one. And these moments of peace established this strong bond. It's almost like a small relationship between me and art. I didn't care about improving, I just wanted to draw whatever I felt like, and by doing so, I felt whole. This is the spark which will forever fuel my desire for art making. And although I had times of not drawing in between different times in my life, I always came back to it. Now, as an adult, I added another layer to this relationship. I want to take care of it by learning about new knowledge, expand my horizon, explore my visions and ideas. And this combination of emotional connection and intellectual approach makes me improve. You saw my childhood drawings. I don't think they look exceptional for a 5-year-old. In fact, I think I saw way better drawings from 5-year-olds who weren't even that much into art. So is it really talent, or is it hard work and dedication, reflecting on mistakes, exploring knowledge, and ongoing interest? Here's another thing to think about. Being praised as talented can actually hold you back. The inflationary use of the term talent teaches you the wrong things early on. This is something I noticed about my beginner years. Earlier in this video, I already mentioned we all like getting compliments and we want people to like what we do. Well, this can actually shift into something counterproductive. So I was kind of the art kid in school. I wasn't the best at drawing, but it stood out from others. So of course other parents or relatives would tell me how talented I am or compliment my drawings. And with that, the lesson I learned was, oh nice, I don't even have to practice. I don't even have to learn basics because I'm talented. Seems like I just got it. So for years, I leaned back, drew every now and then whenever I felt like it, never thought about actively learning new skills and thought the improvement will come naturally because I'm talented. Wrong. I learned this the hard way later. After a lot of frustration and desperation, I have to practice just like others have to. There's nothing special about me. Talent is a lie. Or at least, it doesn't matter. That's also why, as a self-taught artist, I felt like I have to start from scratch when I actively looked for knowledge about proportions, values, shading, and so on. I always thought I don't need to learn new things because people say I'm talented. I will just naturally become better and better. This is just an example, but I hope you can see how damaging it can potentially be to rely on talent. Telling people they are naturally gifted can cause young people to overly rely on their pure existence. And if you think you have a godlike status or are an absolute prodigy while doing nothing, man, it's time to come back to earth and start being a bit more humble. Welcome to the club, where we all have to go through the same fundamentals and basics. We're all going to be frustrated, sad, demotivated, and discouraged from time to time, but it's time to start thinking about why you actually create art. My next talking point may sound negative at first, but hear me out. I actually want to encourage everyone when I talk about talent is being used as an excuse. This might be a somewhat unpleasant opinion, but I think we, maybe even subconsciously, use the term talent to judge different skill levels. Often enough, I saw artists being called so talented in the same sentence as, I could never do this. So let me get this straight. Instead of trying to become as good as someone else you admire, you just shrug it off and say, nah, I just don't have the talent. That's it? Sounds a lot like giving up to me. How many times when you say, I could never be as good, have you actually tried to pursue this craft? I say in a lot of cases, people who say this aren't even doing this craft. It's kind of making yourself feel better about having less skill because the other person is just lucky. That's not nice. How about we rephrase, I will never be as good into, one day, I will become just as good. And this is where the encouraging part begins. We should all believe in ourselves, not in instant results, but in a long journey which then leads to satisfying growth and desired outcomes. We need to stop romanticizing learning skills and having this image of immediate results after one try. We need to be realistic about our own capabilities, yes, but we also need to find motivation and optimism. Don't talk someone else down just because you don't want to put the effort in. This person probably put years of sweat into art. You can't expect the same results with no effort. I know we never see the long, rocky path, unless you follow me on YouTube, because I upload every artwork I create with the process, but no one is just born with a master skill level. It's better and healthier to assume that person went through a lot of struggle to get where they are. And my last point, which really softens this whole heated discussion, is you're so talented is first and foremost meant as a compliment. So take it, accept it, and be grateful. This is more for artists who get really triggered, and I elaborated a lot in this video why the term is objectively problematic, but let's hop on the other side for a while. When people give you this compliment, their intention is a really nice one. The way they express it may be hard to swallow, but artists should stop getting mad about this. You can't educate people on how difficult it was to get where you are. They will never be in your shoes, and to them, all that matters is what they see right in front of them. They might not even care what it took to finish an artwork or how many times you started from scratch. All they care about right here and now is that they love your work and are expressing it. So it's time to take a step back and become a bit more stoic. Let go of what you cannot control, and that is what other people think and know. You can only control your own thoughts and reactions, and getting upset over someone expressing admiration is not very useful. I know this is a very split discussion, and I don't want to step on someone's toe or offend anyone, but whether or not talent exists, I hope we can all meet at this standpoint. It doesn't really matter. It is pursued interest with a deeply rooted connection within yourself, which makes you become better. And I believe if you really want to become better at creating art, if you really want it, You have the same chance as anyone else has. We can only try to outdo ourselves every time, and by doing so we succeed, move on, and become better. But enough of my opinion, please let us know what you think about this big topic in the comments. I'm looking forward to your viewpoints. Thank you so much for joining me here in this video, and I'll see you next time.